All right.
Everyone! Time for the Get to the Point review.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Get to the Point review podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am your host, Kelly McKinney of Hohenheim Productions.
And I'm your other host, Josh Gibson of Fourth Wall Players.
And this week, it's our Valentine's Day episode. So
Ooh la la!
Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there who went out and spent money on your loved one. And such and such.
And your second loved one.
And your second loved one.
I mean,
whatever, however
your
many
one
you
and
got.
only person.
Hopefully, probably your mom. Hopefully your mom. And because, in light of the upcoming holiday, we're basically taking a look at, overall, it'll be the top 5 sitcom will they, won't they couples, each of us with our favorite list of 5, but also the recent movie. We took a look at Wonder Woman in 1984 from 2020. So the much long-awaited sequel. We actually did a What It Is episode over Wonder Woman 1984.
We did,
a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Yep.
It did not turn out as well as we hoped.
No, it didn't. No, and also I'm still puzzled about the year. Why 1984? Even after seeing the movie.
Yeah?
Puzzled as to why the year 1984. But...
because 80s are in right now.
Yeah, I guess so. Everyone's doing period pieces.
Here in five, well, actually, we're kind of going from the 80s to the 90s now. But the 90s are about to, they're starting to make their comeback. The 80s are kind of going out of the...
I know, but naturally, as usual, DC's behind on everything. So
behind on everything.
Even though Captain Marvel went ahead and did their 90s still,
Yeah.
we're like, well...
we'll do it in the 80s.
We do like fanny packs and hoop earrings.
People liked Thor Ragnarok.
Right, which was not in the 80s.
Not in the 80s, but it had a lot of the 80s kind of feel to it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right, and so Josh, why don't you kick us off with your Wonder Woman 1984 review? I've got my Get to the Point review is Get to the Points. More so than
multiple points.
Yeah.
I tried to make mine quick. Waste of Pedro Pascal. Should not have brought Steve Trevor back. Let's do the Justice League treatment and release the director's cut 5 years from now. This is the way.
There you go. Nice. I feel like I've hit most of the same references you have at some point. Yeah, and so with mine, okay, I put The Time Traveler's Wife, Teen Witch, and every MLM owner's wet dream are combined into this twisted remake of Bedazzled. And I also, so we have some extra thoughts here. Okay, first of all, was this the first draft? Okay.
With multiple first drafts.
Yeah. Also, what I saw on screen was a superhero's fantasized response to Michael Jackson's Baby Dangling. And I hope CoffeeZilla saw this.
Yes.
Also, why are we seeing a jet that flies at flying carpet speeds? Also, lines about sand. Go ahead.
This is the way?
No, the lines about sand from Star Wars.
Oh.
Insert lines about
Yeah.
sand. And we also
Kids
had
everywhere.
there's kids everywhere. And then we also had some really comical child mannequins in some of the action sequences. It was really ridiculous.
Like all good movies.
And this movie didn't know when to end because who knows when we'll get another one. Right? I think that's why it went so long.
At this rate, not soon.
Yeah, and so to summarize this movie and Pedro Pascal's involvement in it, I put Oberyn starts the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
There we go.
And those were my tons of thoughts. I was
surprised.
shockingly surprised
Yeah.
at how bad the movie was.
Okay, real question. Was it compared to New Mutants? Better or worse?
I enjoyed New Mutants more.
Really?
Yes.
Jeez Louise. Okay.
I enjoyed New Mutants more.
I don't know what it is. I hated that freaking movie.
Oh,
I hated it.
I enjoyed it so
All
much
right,
more.
compared to The Witches, better or worse?
Better than The Witches.
Yeah.
Okay, better than The Witches.
That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, better than The Witches, but worse than New Mutants. Yeah, and so that brings us to this time. We always go and do a review over the review. Our Get to the Point review this time will be over a variety review over Wonder Woman 1984 by Peter DeBruge. And you want to go ahead and start us off with your review on the review?
Yes. Peter starts off trying to review a movie, but then accidentally stumbles into Cliff Notes instead. Also, he seemed really impressed with the unsubtle wokeness of the film.
Right, which I missed completely.
Well, I feel it almost sounded like he was adding a lot of that in there.
It sure feels like it to me
Yeah.
because. Well, let me get to my review
Go ahead,
of the
sorry.
review, and then
Sorry.
we'll go further into
discuss
this
it,
because
yes.
mine sort of wraps up in this. I put hooray for the swipe at the lies and falsehoods out of the Trump administration, but poor Peter is far too distracted by Wonder Woman's elegant and modest beauty to see the disaster that this movie that failed to end.
That's fair.
Because yes, he kept remarking on the wokeness of this, and
He remarked on Donald Trump like at least 3 times, and we didn't even finish the review.
I must just be missing the diversity because Cheetah was played by a white woman. Gal Gadot is basically white to me, and
Whitish.
Pedro
She's
Pascal.
white adjacent.
Pedro Pascal, with the prosthetics that he had on his face, looked to me like a white
Like
guy.
they
but he still has
they white-faced him.
Yes, they basically white-faced Pedro Pascal and let him keep his accent.
Right.
And then they gave him a confused Vietnamese-looking child that doesn't look anything like him, and it was like
Diversity.
diversity, diversity, wokeness. It's so confusing. So thank you, Peter DeBruge, for the Cliff Notes / review on the movie, but we wholeheartedly disagree with you. And I guess that brings us speedily.
Yeah, let's get off of Wonder Woman right now.
No. Let's bring the love and happiness to the Valentine's Day episode.
La
with
la 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 la.
You definitely didn't come here to hear us sing. All right. So, top 5 sitcom will they, won't they couples. Josh, you want to kick us off with your first one?
Okay, so most of mine actually still fall into this, but I was just going with couples that I liked. It didn't have to be a will they, won't they thing. So,
Oh, you didn't even follow our rules.
well, I don't know. Anyway. So my first one is Jake and Amy Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Classic story of a slob and a neat freak mashed together. Title of your sex tape. The relationship grows organically. Even starting off with their first date was actually like a bet that Jake won. That Amy was forced to go on the worst date ever with Jake. And they had such great chemistry that it
wasn't such a bad date after all.
Yeah, it ended up being a good date at the end, and the rest is history. But yeah, I was very impressed with how they did that.
I am still very unfamiliar with Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh man,
I've only seen clips and pieces of
Captain
it.
Holt himself is worth a watch.
Well, but I've only heard good things about the series. I mean, it has Terry Crews in
Yep.
it, right? Yes, yeah. So that's why I'm familiar with it. Watching Terry Crews interviews and hearing him.
Yeah,
talk
I
about
was like, before I started watching it, and when I saw it previewed, I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to watch a show starring Andy Samberg. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because of the movies he'd done, I was like, I'm not really sure. And he is kind of like Andy Samberg in the first season.
Right.
But early on in the show, when they're trying to figure out the Jake character and like how to balance him, Holtz is so solid, and so like Andre Braugher is freaking hilarious in that show. His just like deadpan delivery of everything.
It's on my list of things to watch.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, it's god.
Okay, here's one you probably haven't seen then. Frasier. And for my will they won't they couple, I did choose Niles and Daphne. Not only is it a budding will they won't they romance all the way into season 7, but even after they become a couple, they grow together as a couple.
Right.
And the characters in it are so well defined that it doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So to summarize, rather than doing my get to the point review on the couple itself, I did it on the series, right, overall. So in the 11 seasons that you would see of Frasier, you will get high-class socialite references span 11 years of crackpot psychiatry with Seattle's 2 favorite sherry-sipping men about town. And your next one, Josh.
My next one is also a kickback to the 90s. Chandler and Monica from Friends. Everyone freaks out about Ross and Rachel, but that relationship seriously is toxic as hell. And this one, Chandler and Monica, I feel is actually built more on a mutual respect and care for each other. They almost seem to fit together, like almost like puzzle pieces, right? Just because of their different personalities and how they gel. Mm-hmm. I just thought that relationship grew more organically, made a lot more sense than Ross and Rachel.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because thinking back on Niles and Daphne too, mm-hmm. the like whether or not they fit together like the pieces of the puzzle. You know, because of Niles' attraction to Daphne, it's like, sure. And then when you find out that Daphne's had a mutual attraction to him, too, it's just been like, you know, mm-hmm. it's a married man, so she would never even act or speak on it or acknowledge it in the first place. It's just kind of like, he's a light bulb, you know, or mm-hmm. a lamp or whatever until then. But when it comes down to, like, because of her life experiences mm-hmm. and who her actual mm-hmm. friends are, she gets kind of like the best parts of American life from both sides,
right?
Being that she gets with Niles and everything else, and so I guess just in that sort of sense, and then you know Niles not dealing with Maris anymore and having an actual loving, caring mm-hmm. partner is a complete shift change from what he mm-hmm. dealt with the whole series.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one. Let's see. Let's keep it in the 90s for a second. We're gonna go with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I put my will they won't they couple is Will and Janet. Just kidding. Will and Lisa. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar, Janet was played by Vivica A. Fox, who I've had a huge crush on my entire life. Hit me up, Vivica. Also, and she was only in one episode. That's what makes it so funny.
But it's a memorable episode, too.
It is. It's memorable for me for a lot of reasons.
Well, but even for me, I don't even have a particular interest in her, but I remember her character in the one episode.
Yeah, well, and then naturally, you know, Lisa, played by Nia Long, that's the real will they, won't they couple mm-hmm. in that series. And because of how well they flesh Lisa's character out to be able to hold down Will mm-hmm. and, like, control his impulses and his sort of, you know, mm-hmm. let's be honest, fuckboy style. So, yeah. And so to summarize the series with my get to the point review, I put a running gag of the best fat jokes on television with one of the most well-defined characters in a sitcom. And that was just basically how I wrapped it up, because that was one thing that kept the series going strong as long as it did, is how well-defined the characters were. You know?
Yeah, all the characters, yeah.
Yeah, all of the characters were really well-defined. So, and as the other characters grew, it provided natural content as we grew up with the families.
Right.
Whereas when they try to do that nowadays with the sitcoms, the millions of sitcoms that have failed within a couple of seasons, they don't start with a strong enough foundation and premise or on the characters to build a long-term show that allows us to grow up with the characters. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And your next one, Josh?
Did somebody say 90s? My next one is Lois and Hal from Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not a will they, won't they couple.
Well, that's why I said I didn't go will they, won't they. I just went with my favorite couples based on standards. So one of the most intriguing and relatable portrayals of a lower-class married couple with kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though like they live, you know, kind of the rough, you know, paycheck to paycheck struggle, and they're all trying to keep up with their four hellion boys, they still find time to go at it like horned up teenagers. Even after all this, I mean, they're obviously exhausted and overworked and overstressed, and every chance they get, Hal is on Lois like friggin'.
Yes, it's amazing to me how that gag never got tired.
No.
The boys are out of the house.
Yeah,
and then it's like, oh, is it? Well, let me draw a bath. It's like instantly like, yes, because totally true. Totally realistic.
One of the greatest parts of that show, I thought, was them.
It is. Well, and I love everybody in the cast. Including Frankie Muniz. It's like, you know.
I mean, including this show.
Some people don't like Frankie Muniz. I've seen. I guess I'm just, maybe it's just like grunge and like Screen Rant videos that I've seen about him, about like why, I don't know, Hollywood.
Well, he's apparently kind of an asshole.
that's part of his charm. That's part of his charm. Isn't it worth it to have a good Frankie Muniz on set?
Right.
But yeah, and I love Malcolm in the Middle. If we were just going with favorite sitcoms, that would have been top 5 easy. Because like when
It's one that gets overlooked a lot in the discussion.
well, when Breaking Bad came out and they were like, Bryan Cranston playing this, I was like, oh my god, because
Fucking hell.
I knew him solely from Malcolm in the Middle.
I mean, anyone that knew him then did.
That's what they knew him from.
Yeah.
Right, but it was just like the fact that I already loved his character to death to see a comedian going and doing, he was just a comedy actor, but someone who I viewed as a comedy actor going and doing some serious drama, it was like, this is it. This I knew before that show ever aired that it would be his like breakout role, even though it's not his breakout role because Malcolm in the Middle was. I mean, he even directed.
He's pretty much
Malcolm
the only. Oh, well, Malcolm in the Middle, yeah. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking Breaking Bad. No, Malcolm in the Middle, he's really the only one of the main characters that did kind of break out.
Yeah.
With how solid that whole cast was.
Yep.
And Frankie Muniz had a couple years during the show, but he got in, like, some accident or something.
Yeah.
And had some mild brain... Like, he can't remember, like, 2 entire seasons of Malcolm in the Middle.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
Yep. I think maybe that was what the Screen Rant video was, like why Frankie Muniz is no longer in Hollywood. Or something like that. But Malcolm in the Middle, that was a good one. Okay, so to bring it up a little more relevant, to closer to our time, I'm going to go with Becker next. And
it's a little closer.
It's not, but it's not the couple that, for those of you who remember Becker, which is another Ted Danson sitcom, for those of you who remember Becker, you would think that I would name Becker and any one of the girlfriends he had in one of the seasons. No. Reggie and Bob. That to me is the top will they, won't they couple, because this is the thing. Reggie was just delusional enough to think that she was better than Bob. And she's on the same damn level as him. And what other man would have paid her the attention and loved her the way that he would have? Yes. And I guess as both the underdog and the greasy one, I approve of this marriage. You know what I mean? So what I said is to summarize Becker, a realistic portrayal of the income level of doctors meets boomer complaints in this Ted Danson sitcom. So that's pretty much how I summarize Becker, which I love Becker. I love Ted Danson, so that's the easy shoe-in for me.
I see your early 2000s show, and I match you. Turk and Carla from Scrubs. So,
I knew Scrubs was going to be on there.
Again, the J.D. Elliott thing is something it's toxic as shit. I mean, he literally multiple times makes her break up with boyfriends to get with him, and then afterwards is like, I really don't want to do this.
Right.
Like, it happens at least 3 times in the dang show.
And then shit's all over the relationship.
Yeah, and then, like, she's gone, and he's like, oh, I want her. But anyway, so let's talk about the good couple. And this is actually close between Turk and Carla and Dr. Cox and Jordan. That was another really good one. But Turk and Carla... I think one of the better early examples of relationship goals, they can get a bit much with the trope of screw-up husband and nagging wife, but there's so much more to each one of their characters that it's easily overlooked to just enjoy their... And they work it out in serious ways. Like, when they get mad, it's not like, I'm never talking to you again, you lied to me, slam the door. It's
work through it.
Yeah, let's work through it and discuss it as a couple, which especially at that time, you rarely saw on TV.
This is something that's interesting to me too. Is that at least during the time of that sitcom, okay, as long of a run
01
as
to
Scrubs,
09 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But basically during the 2000s, there, it's very interesting because we all know that the dating world has changed tremendously in the past 20 years.
Yeah.
But this is something that's interesting about that. Whereas JD and Elliot, right, are on again, off again. They're so easy to throw away their commitment to one another to go after somebody else. To me, this is something that I've observed with African American culture, is that the fact that you made the decision to get into a relationship with me, now we're stuck in it, and we have to work through things before we really throw away the commitment. And that's what you see from Turk. And it's like, I love that.
And Carla being Dominican.
Yeah, right. It's very, so I just love it that the difference in commitment to relationship and what you're getting yourself into when you decide to pursue another person is awesome. I just think that so it's definitely the top will they, won't they couple in that series. I totally agree with you.
Right, yeah.
Awesome. And the next one on my list is The Office US, and it's not what most people would think about being Jim and Pam, but instead Michael and Holly, which to me is the most beautiful relationship in that series. I can't remember the season specifically, but she comes and goes earlier in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, in the series. And then he is remembering her for a solid 3 to 4 years later before he even has the chance. Saber goes through, Dunder Mifflin goes through a number of new owners and everything before it ever comes about. So it was really beautiful. And to summarize the series and my get to the point review, I put clinical depression is the cubicle office environment. In the cubicle office environment meets mockumentary style live action South Park. And that'd be because they stayed somewhat culturally relevant as the series came out. They basically made fun of trends right as they were done being popular.
Okay.
So episodes, for instance, the one where they started out with the whole planking thing, where people were just planking at random places, was done at just the right time when it first came out. Same thing with, I say it all the time, parkour.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, and it's from The Office. They opened up one where everyone was like, "Oh yeah, the 2000 and whatever sensation from the internet."
I think even Archer picked that up for a while.
It is funny, you know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, it's just great humor, great humor, and that's why I brought up the South Park thing, just like as far as relevance goes.
All right, well, I'm going to take your paper company, and I'm going to raise you the Parks Department.
Okay.
Leslie and Ben Nope from Parks and Recreation. I can't stress how well these two gel. I admit I saw it coming from the beginning, but I was not disappointed with how they handled it and by the payoff. And the fact that they're both just like extreme nerds, just in different areas of life, kind of makes them like my power couple.
Right.
They actually do a lot of really good relationships on Parks and Rec. This is just, to me, my favorite one. And man,
yeah, and Parks and Rec, just like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, is another one that I need to put some time in to watch because I'm only loosely familiar with the characters.
The first season is just bad.
Well,
but after that, it gets really good.
Well, like with Parks and Rec, Community, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I kind of loop all three of these shows in together as things that came after The Office, trying to capture the same comedy style.
I guess.
It's not...
Maybe Parks and Rec started that way and then kind of veered away from it, and that's when it got good.
More closer towards...
Yeah, because so the first season and a half, they do the mockumentary thing, but then they're like... They weren't very good, so they just kind of switched it up. And then every once in a while, they'll have because she's in politics, every once in a while there'll be just a random camera person on her, and she'll talk about stuff, but it's not not the same.
Right. Yeah, again, it's still on my to-watch list. I just like to wait until after things are popular.
Yeah.
But the problem with shows like this...
problem with streaming services, yeah.
Well, it's not only that, but these shows have cult followings.
Yes.
So, and not only that, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's still on the air.
It's still going, yeah.
Right, it's still going. So with Parks and Rec, did they finish up?
Oh, yeah, back in 2017 or 18.
And same thing with
Community was before that,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm safe to watch those, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that finished up your list, didn't it?
That finished up both.
Okay.
Yours is done too, right?
No, I have one more. I let you go first, which means I'm going to be going
Oh, you're
last.
right. I thought you went first this time. I'm sorry.
Why would you have 5 and I'd have 4? Okay.
I don't know. I thought you went first.
My list is taking us my last on my list is taking us way back. More Ted Danson. Cheers.
Of course.
And I chose Sam and Diane because, it was a will they, won't they from the get-go, obviously. But they wrapped that up rather well by season 3. Where she was gone away and she wasn't coming back. And the sting of that relationship still carried on for a season afterwards, and then no one that came into the show afterwards filled the hole that Diane left.
Right, which was good. That's a good way to handle that.
It really is. Right, but it's more than just storyline wise. It's also the hole left on the screen.
Right.
Because Shelley Long was brilliant as Diane. And then even when they finally hooked up, there were problems still there.
Yeah.
Much like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where, he needed a woman strong enough to lock him down. And Diane still had that didn't know how to get to Sam, right? But anyway, so to summarize the series, in our Get to the Point review, I put a realistic portrayal of the... Oh, nope, that's Becker. Cheers. The
Wrong
best,
Ted Danson.
Yeah, the best comedy you're likely to find in a Boston pub where everybody knows your name. And alcoholism is the name of the game. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it is.
Norm is definitely an alcoholic. You should get some help.
Everybody that's a regular in there is an alcoholic.
That's true.
Yeah, Phil, Paul,
I just always think of, like, Norm, you know.
Yeah, yes, of course.
So I don't have any more, like, actual things. I just wanted to share these because I liked these other couples too, but they didn't quite make the top 5.
Okay, honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions. Alan and Amy Matthews from Boy Meets World. And again, it's not a will they, won't they. I mean, they're a married couple the entire time. But I thought they were really good. Again, like, the reason they didn't make it is because they didn't have as much, like, Lois and Hal. Like, their relationship wasn't explored that much. It was mostly about them being, like, mentors to their kids, which is fine. I mean, the show was, about Corey. But Amy and Kip from Futurama, which I just thought was adorable and nerdy and amazing in every way possible, and something that you never thought in 1,000 years would work, and it somehow did. Right. Darlene and David from Roseanne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Zach and Kelly from Saved by the Bell. I was...
oh, no.
Yeah, I mean... You can't... They're definitely one of the more popular early 90s couples.
It's kind of unfair because Zach has a superpower.
Yeah, he has a superpower. He can freeze time.
He can freeze time, yeah.
And then Red and Kitty Foreman from That 70s Show.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Well, as far as his favorite couples.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See.
And the only reason they didn't beat Lois... Well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons they didn't make the top 5 is because in the last couple seasons, I don't think they're that great.
No.
But in the beginning, they're fucking amazing. Yeah. By the end of it, Kitty was just like a mean, aggressive alcoholic, basically. Right. And it's just like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense. No.
So, yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
All right, and so for this episode, Twitter, whose Twitter feed?
I mean, we mentioned Ted Danson twice.
We did mention Ted Danson twice. All right, so
I can't think of anybody else we mentioned more than once.
No. Well, we both had something to say about Pedro Pascal.
That's true.
All right, so his most recent tweet is a retweet of the Kelly Clarkson show when he was last on there, and Holly Hunter, and they shared their most memorable pre-fame jobs. Okay, so without knowing what we've got to do, we each need to list 2 pre-fame jobs we can picture Ted Danson having.
Ted Danson having?
Ted Danson having. That's how we get to the point review this.
Ted Danson...
It'll be like guessing the plot with memes.
I'm thinking lawn care maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Or 60s style diner cook.
Wow, okay, so you picture him flipping burgers. I was going to say bartender.
Yeah, but because he was famous fairly early on. Like, it wasn't like he was in his 40s before people discovered him. So I guess I just was assuming, like, what are, like, some minimum wage type jobs that teenagers would work.
Yeah, and because he blew up early, I would have to guess, especially because of his age, I'd have to also guess Paperboy.
Paperboy was another one, yeah.
Easy enough summer job for anybody to pick up.
Right.
There we go. All right, so there we go.
Wow.
Wow. All right, so, and that pretty much wraps up things for us, folks. But if you are a fan of video games or consider yourself a gamer, one of the cheapest and still legit ways to find some of today's best games is through CD Keys. CD Keys allows you to purchase Steam keys for some of your favorite games for just a fraction of the price. More details can be found with the affiliate link listed below.
And if you weren't aware, Kelly and I shot a movie a few years back called The Here and Now. Formerly offered on Amazon Prime, it is now exclusively located on the Fourth Wall Players Patreon page, as well as merchandise and behind-the-scenes content. Become a patron today at patreon.com/fourthwallplayers. That's patreon.com/4thwallplayers, all one word.
And finally, if, after the podcast, you're still clamoring for entertainment, film news, movie breakdowns, or comedy series, you can find more of me and Josh on the Hohenheim Productions YouTube, with segments like What It Is, A Note of Brilliance, and TV series plots as guests through memes.
Woo!
All right, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time on the Get to the Point Review podcast.
Get to the point.